Teach the truth. Teach the truth.
Teachers and students chanted together Saturday to keep history lessons real.
We're teaching kids to be critical thinkers.
David Skolton is a fifth-grade teacher in Portland who helped organize this rally at Friendship Circle. The group joined national demonstrations,
Teach the truth,
calling out lawmakers in other states who are trying to ban certain lessons about sexism, homophobia, and race.
Racism is a complex issue. It requires digging. It requires, an inquisitive mind.
The people marching here feel a lot of history is glossed over, contributing to systemic racism and discrimination today.
How do we discover a deeper truth and then bring it to our kids, right?
Critical race theory involves these tough conversations, using real examples from history and today, showing how racism bleeds into other subjects, where opportunities have been denied to certain groups. But a number of states are moving to make this harder. Idaho, for example, already passed a law limiting how teachers can talk about race and gender.
I think what the opposition feels is that if we don't talk about race and racism, it'll go away.
But Skolton says transparency about injustice is critical.
Talking about racism is a way to heal the division. If we can't diagnose the disease and really understand how it came about, there's no way to heal from it.
So that history doesn't repeat itself. Galen Etlin, KGW News.